Jim Bianco of Bianco Research cautioning the Fed to tread lightly when adjusting their policy approach. He writes the following: the Fed should be very careful in changing the program, like extending maturity, which is a popular call. Fed programs are forever. Jim joins us now for more. Jim, expand on that. Why do you think they should be so careful?
Well, Fed programs are forever. Remember, QE was started as an emergency program during the financial crisis in 2008. 12 years later, it's bigger and better than ever before. The big story of the last month was the shock that the temporary bond buying programs were indeed temporary, and they're going to end on December 31st. If the Fed were to expand and buy longer-term bonds, they have to say to themselves, this is going to be forever. We saw what happened in 2018 when they tried to reduce the balance sheet on automatic pilot and the market threw a hissy fit. They're going to have a hard time getting out of this. So if they do decide to buy bonds and something like inflation or higher yields or concerns come that the Fed needs to raise rates, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to reverse that policy somewhere down the road. So use it when you have to, and that would mean maybe when you get into another uncertain market environment like we were in the spring, but don't be running it out there just because you feel like you should. You might regret it.
Jim, from a policy perspective, do you see the positives in a steeper curve, in higher yields at the long end?
It depends on why you're getting higher yields. Interest rates typically go up because of expected nominal growth. Nominal is real growth in inflation. If the reason rates are going up is real growth is expanding and the curve is steepening, that's good. If the reason is because inflation expectations are expanding, excuse me, that's not good. So it's not just a case of higher yields are always better. I know that's been the case for the last 25 years, but if it is the case like Bill Dudley wrote yesterday or the day before on Bloomberg that we might be seeing inflation, then higher yields are not necessarily the panacea that everybody thinks they're going to be, because if they come on the back of inflation, that could cause all kinds of problems.
Jim, you've been quite critical of the Federal Reserve's response at times through 2020. You haven't hidden that. You've come on this programme and shared it with me. Jim, when do you think we pay the bill, and what is the bill? What does it look like in the years to come?
I think the bill is going to be inflation. If you have all of this, these purchases, the expansion of the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, add in the massive $3.2 trillion deficit, which is one of the highest debt to GDPs ever in American history, that all of that should lead to inflation. That's why we've never done it before in American history, because whenever you've had this kind of massive government and monetary response, it's always led to too much inflation. If it doesn't lead to inflation, I always like to talk about the other side, well, then let's just send a check to everybody every week. Because if there's no consequence to doing this, there's no reason to stop it. But I do think there will be a consequence, and that consequence very well could be in 21 and into 22. We're going to start to see significantly higher inflation, and for the equity market, that might lead to multiple contraction.
Jim, just quickly before we let me go, in a couple of minutes' time, I'll catch up with Larry Kudlow, a man you know well. What do you think is left for this administration to do in the month and change that they have in the White House?
Probably get a fiscal deal done at this point. That is the most important economic story that Larry would have to have, is where are they with the fiscal deal, and what type of deal would it be?
Looking forward to catching up with Larry Kudlow in just a couple of minutes' time. Jim, great to catch up, sir. We'll talk before Christmas. Jim Bianco there of Bianco Research. Thank you. With your